In the depths of London's dark nights, where the blood of innocent victims flowed upon the streets, a name echoed that would never be forgotten: Jack the Fox. Do you know where to seek the truth? In a place where light never reaches? In the darkness, where only shadows speak and nothing exists but the truth itself? In a neighborhood called Whitechapel, in the heart of London's cold and foggy nights, 5 innocent women fell victim to a horrific crime. A mysterious killer, whose face was never seen, remains one of the greatest mysteries in the history of crime. Perhaps you too want to know who this killer was. Why did he continue making his choices? And how did he manage to escape the law amid so many schemes and scattered clues? Behind this black veil, something is hidden. Something the world doesn't want you to see. Tonight, in this dark and mysterious tale, we will take a look at Jack the Fox and his crimes. Here, darkness tells all, and perhaps the truth that has remained hidden until now awaits us in the depths of London's nights. In the year 1888, London was engulfed in fear and terror, especially in a neighborhood called Whitechapel, where the poor and working class commonly resided. Here, in the narrow, filthy streets that were never cleansed of the dust of time, an unknown man committed crimes that sent shockwaves across the world. 5 women, 5 victims. All belonged to the lower classes of society, living lives filled with hardship and suffering. But poverty alone was not what made them the targets of this killer. Jack the Fox's choices were not random. He selected his victims with precision, weaving a terrifying story for each one of them. This man, known as Jack the Fox, became one of the most mysterious and terrifying figures in the history of crime. No one ever saw his face, and no one was able to capture him. Since then, the only thing that remains of him is a name and a series of horrifying murders that still linger in the darkness. How did the killer operate? How did he find his victims? And why has his identity never been revealed to this day? These are questions that have not only challenged the police of London, but have also puzzled the entire world. But within this darkness, the truth remains hidden, a place where nothing is clear. Jack the Fox was someone who was never caught with his own hands, yet the traces of blood and the fear he left behind will forever remain in history. What made Jack the Fox so terrifying and different? Was he a psychopath who randomly committed these crimes, or a skilled mastermind who carefully chose his targets in the heart of the darkness? Here, nothing was accidental. One of the striking features of Jack the Fox's crimes was the way he selected his victims. He always targeted women who lived in the lowest social classes, sex workers who wandered the streets of London alone at night. Perhaps this is why society and the police of that time paid little attention to the victims. In the end, those who were seen as the most marginalized members of society became the ones to fall. But Jack the Fox's choices weren't just based on the social status of his victims. He knew exactly how to execute his plan. None of his murders were accidental. He would kill his victims in the darkness of night, when the chances of finding a witness were minimal, in a horrific manner. Often, these crimes were accompanied by ruthless violence. The severe wounds, especially to the abdomen and internal organs of the victims, showed that Jack the Fox was not just a killer, but a person with meticulous attention to detail and boundless courage. But what was Jack the Fox seeking? Perhaps a psychologist could answer this question. Many analysts believe he might have been an individual with specific psychological disorders. Others believe he may have been someone with advanced training and experience in medicine or surgery, as his ability to mimic surgical procedures with precision indicated specialized knowledge. And this raises even bigger questions. Was Jack the Fox simply a criminal, or could there have been an innocent person among us who, due to certain circumstances, was compelled to commit these murders? Isn't it true that nothing in this world happens by accident? Perhaps the truth is always hidden in the darkness, and maybe Jack the Fox is exactly what the world doesn't want to see. A criminal with a complex soul and a terrifying understanding of life. Jack the Fox, a name that still remains as one of the greatest mysteries in the history of crime. He was never caught, and his face was never revealed to the world. But the question that still lingers in people's minds is, who was Jack the Fox? Over the years, many hypotheses and theories have been proposed about the identity of this mysterious killer. Each of these theories has its own details, but none have been able to definitively identify him. Let's take a look at some of these theories together. The first theory, which has been widely discussed, is that Jack the Fox may have been a doctor. In many analyses, particularly due to the precision and skill in his killings and the complex surgeries performed on his victims, it has been suggested that he might have been a physician with surgical expertise. The murders, especially the wounds to the internal organs of the victims, indicated knowledge and experience in surgery, which could be a clue about his profession. On the other hand, at that time, there were many doctors in London who were under social and economic pressures, and perhaps this could have been a suitable catalyst for a hidden criminal. Another theory that has been proposed involves a member of the royal family. Yes, it is suggested that Prince Albert Victor, a member of the British royal family, might have been Jack the Fox. Some believe that he was involved in scandals and resorted to murder to conceal his secrets. While this theory has never been definitively proven, it has been a topic of discussion and intrigue for many years. Another theory, which many true crime enthusiasts have explored, suggests that Jack the Fox could have been an artist. Some believe he was a painter or an artist with a twisted mind who expressed his dark and brutal sense of aesthetics through his crimes. This theory is largely based on similarities observed between some of Jack the Fox's murders and artworks from that time, where certain gruesome details and styles seem to echo the macabre themes of the crimes. Finally, one of the theories that has gained significant attention in recent decades is that Jack the Fox may not have been any of these possibilities at all, but simply an anonymous criminal with no ties to any particular class. He might have been just an ordinary man who, in the shadows of London's nights, committed his crimes in the darkness, with no grand motive other than his own sinister impulses. None of these theories can definitively reveal the truth. The question still remains, who was Jack the Fox? Is the truth hidden in the darkness? Or perhaps in this world full of secrets, Jack the Fox still lives among us, with a face that no one has been able to identify. And perhaps, as we've always said, the truth is hidden in the darkness. In every crime, evidence remains. Clues that sometimes seem simple but can lead the way to the truth. But in the case of Jack the Fox, everything was more complex than it appeared, making it difficult to follow the trail. The police in London at that time were faced with many challenges, and this caused Jack the Fox to remain hidden in the shadows. The first thing that stands out about these crimes is the ruthless and precise evidence. The murders were carried out in such a way that the victims had no chance of survival. But what distinguished these murders from other crimes was the specific and detailed method Jack the Fox used to carry them out. One of the most striking features of these crimes was the way the internal organs of the victims were mutilated. This indicated skill in surgery and a deep knowledge of medical science. Many experts believe that Jack the Fox was either a skilled doctor or at least had specialized knowledge in anatomy. Another clue that still remains in this case is the fake letters sent to the police, purportedly from Jack the Fox. Some of these letters were chilling and mysterious, with one of them even known as the Murders of Jack the Fox. In these letters, Jack the Fox detailed his murders, which deeply confused and bewildered the police. However, none of these letters were able to definitively reveal his identity, and they seemed more like psychological games played by a complex criminal. Among the prominent pieces of evidence in the entire case is the blood trail. These bloodstains not only indicated the precise details of the crimes, but also suggested that Jack the Fox was likely committing his murders in dark, hidden locations, away from the public eye. Blood traces were found on the streets of Whitechapel, on the victims' clothes, and even in the corners of dilapidated neighborhoods. But the question that still remains unanswered is, why did no one see him? Why was there no witness who could identify him? And finally, one of the biggest clues missing from this case was clear images or credible documentation of the crime scenes. Unlike many other criminal cases, there were no films or photographs of Jack the Fox's murders. Of course, this was due to the lack of modern technologies and the absence of surveillance cameras at the time. But this lack of evidence made the police's task even more challenging. But amidst all these clues, perhaps there is one thing that they were never able to understand at the time. How did Jack the Fox manage to escape the law after each murder, despite all the evidence and clues left behind? Here, in the darkness and at the heart of this mystery, the truth remains hidden. Perhaps one day someone will uncover it, but until then, Jack the Fox will continue to stand as one of the greatest mysteries in the history of crime. Even after more than a century, the name Jack the Fox remains well known in the world of crime. He is remembered not only as a notorious killer, but as a symbol of the darkness and secrets that people carry within themselves. In fact, Jack the Fox became more than just an ordinary murderer. He turned into a symbol of fear and terror. In the world of criminology, Jack the Fox is recognized as one of the greatest mysteries. Undoubtedly, his influence on subsequent similar cases is undeniable. After his crimes, Many similar murders across the world drew attention, and many criminals throughout history were somehow inspired by the methods of Jack the Fox. But the impact of Jack the Fox has not been limited to the world of criminology. In popular culture, his name is recognized as one of the most terrifying and mysterious killers in history. Countless stories have been written about him. Films and documentaries have delved into his life and crimes, and even video games and horror novels have drawn direct or indirect inspiration from the tale of Jack the Fox. Specifically, he has inspired many famous characters in the world of crime and horror literature. Characters like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or Hannibal Lecter in later literary works share similarities with Jack the Fox's complex and dual nature. In fact, Jack the Fox was more than just a psychopathic killer. He represents fear, shadows, and the darkness that hides within both individuals and societies. But perhaps the most significant impact of Jack the Fox on society is that, as an unidentified killer, he managed to keep people in a constant state of fear and anxiety. In truth, Jack the Fox cast his shadow not only over the streets of London, but over the minds of people around the world. Still, in every corner of the world, whenever the name Jack the Fox is mentioned, fear and excitement ripple through people's hearts simultaneously. Perhaps the truth is that Jack the Fox, more than being an individual, represents a part of humanity itself, a part that lives in the darkness and never emerges into the light. Perhaps he will remain forever in the heart of history, with his secrets forever hidden in the shadows. Over 130 years after Jack the Fox's last murders, one question still remains. Why was he never caught? Why did this mysterious killer, despite the scattered evidence and clues, remain in his dark world and never face the law? At the time, the London police made numerous efforts to uncover the identity of Jack the Fox, but several factors contributed to this case becoming one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history. The first and perhaps most important reason was that Jack the Fox had completely concealed his true nature. He never left strong evidence behind. The murders always took place in the dark nights and quiet alleys of Whitechapel. He never acted in the presence of witnesses and always used secluded, out-of-sight locations to carry out his crimes. In addition, at that time, the lack of technology and tools necessary for identifying criminals was another major obstacle. The London police were unable to conduct detailed analyses of the available evidence, and this issue prevented any definitive leads from being found to identify Jack the Fox. Technologies like DNA analysis, which are now used in criminal investigations, did not exist at that time. Evidence that today might lead us to the killer was only examined in a routine and informal manner back then. Another reason for Jack the Fox's failure to be apprehended was the scattered and complex nature of the evidence. As previously mentioned, Jack the Fox left bloodstains at each of his murders, but none of these stains definitively pointed to him. Additionally, the threatening letters sent to the police were all part of a complex psychological game. These letters not only failed to aid in identifying the killer, but they also caused the London police to become confused and misled in their efforts. The police also made many oversights and mistakes. At that time, corruption and a lack of coordination between different police divisions created numerous problems. Many important witnesses in the case were forgotten or not properly questioned. This disarray in the investigations prevented the police from effectively following the trail of the killer. But perhaps the most important reason is the very nature of Jack the Fox. He may have been an extremely intelligent and aware individual who skillfully exploited the shortcomings of the police and the weaknesses of the legal systems of that time. Jack the Fox might have been one of those criminals who never made a misstep. Like a shadow in the heart of darkness, he never faltered. To this day, no definitive trace of him has been found, and perhaps that is how he remains among us. In the heart of darkness, in places where light cannot reach. Why was Jack the Fox never caught? Perhaps it's because he was not just a killer, but a phantom, vanishing into the nights of London and the heart of history. He still remains in our shadows, in every corner where light cannot reach. Maybe the truth will stay just as it is, hidden, dark, and beyond reach. And perhaps Jack the Fox is still out there, lurking in the darkness, searching for new victims. We all know that today's world is vastly different from 19th century London. With remarkable advancements in science, medicine, and technology, many criminal cases that once seemed unsolvable and complex are now subject to discovery and clarification. But the question that still lingers in our minds is, has Jack the Fox, just as he remains in history, continued to live on in our hearts? Yes, this question continues to intrigue minds. With all the remarkable advances in science and technology, some cases still remain complex and ambiguous even after many years. Perhaps the truth of Jack the Ripper is not only lost in history and darkness, but might remain hidden forever. What was once incomprehensible in its time may still remain shrouded in mystery, even with modern tools. In the complex world of crime, sometimes darkness itself remains a powerful element, and Jack the Ripper may still be alive and lost within that very darkness. In recent years, some researchers and even new criminal teams have revisited this case. Some experts believe that modern technologies could reveal the hidden secrets of the Jack the Ripper case, particularly in the field of DNA analysis, which today is considered one of the most reliable and precise methods in criminal investigations. Perhaps in the near future, a blood sample or another trace from that era could finally uncover his identity. However, some ambiguities remain. Many of the existing pieces of evidence in the case, such as the letters sent to the police or sworn reports from witnesses, have yet to be fully and precisely analyzed. Perhaps just as the police of that time failed to solve the case due to a lack of proper tools, today, some details may still be lost. Or perhaps there is something in the heart of this case that will never be revealed, something deliberately left hidden in the darkness. Moreover, as many researchers and criminologists have pointed out, Jack the Ripper can be seen as a symbol of crime and darkness that still exists in the contemporary world. In today's world, although Jack the Ripper may no longer be among us, similar behaviors and criminal motives hidden within some individuals still persist in societies. Do we really think that all these stories have come to an end? Is the truth of Jack the Ripper, which was hidden in the darkness back then, still continuing in some form in today's world? Perhaps he was not just an individual. Rather, he was a concept, a hidden truth in the heart of history that has never truly disappeared. In the end, perhaps we will never uncover the truth of Jack the Ripper. But as we've always said, darkness always conceals a truth we are unwilling to see. After all these years, the question that still lingers in minds and hearts is this: was Jack the Ripper just a complex and psychopathic killer, or was he something more than an individual? Could he be considered a legend, a creature born from the darkness crafted by history? Or perhaps he's a symbol of something deeper, something within humanity itself that has never been fully understood. In recent years, some researchers, writers, and even filmmakers have speculated that perhaps all of these stories, all of these crimes, were nothing more than rumors and legends. Could it be that Jack the Ripper was not a real individual, but rather a collective ghost? A symbol of the fear and terror that once rooted itself in societies of that time and still lingers in our hearts today. Perhaps he never truly existed at all, and all these stories, struggles, and fears are merely part of a cultural myth that has been passed down from generation to generation. The point we need to consider is that in the world of crime and darkness, many myths and rumors may eventually turn into reality. Humans have always had a tendency to perceive a real enemy, a concrete threat. Yet, this enemy might actually be something abstract and unknown. Jack the Ripper may have become an immortal legend in the heart of history, one that makes us aware of the unknown fears, a legend that can take shape in our minds at any given moment. In the modern world, Jack the Ripper continues to appear in films, books, and even criminal theories. Perhaps we still need these stories because, in a way, they confront us with the darkness within ourselves. These unanswered questions, these lost clues, all of them remind us that even in today's world, where technology has advanced so much, there will always be something in the heart of history that we have yet to uncover. But can we truly say that Jack the Ripper is just a legend? Perhaps in the end, we will never understand who he was or even whether he truly existed at all. Maybe he is just a symbol of darkness, of crime, of something we will never fully comprehend. Perhaps this legend will remain forever, because its truth will never be revealed. Jack the Ripper may be a legend in the heart of history, but this legend remains alive within us. In every corner of the world and every darkness we find ourselves in, his name continues to echo.